Hey folks, walk with me. Can you tell it's cold out today? It's very sunny though, so there's that. Um, Today I wanted to talk about, it's actually an idea that I heard. I don't know if it comes from him, but I heard it from Alan Watts, the philosopher. And it's this concept of how we sort of cheat children. And I will do a second video on this about how that then leans into cheating adults. But to me, the interesting part was the childhood part, because I think that it becomes pretty obvious for adults, but I think it's a little less obvious for children. And so his concept is this idea of what we should do versus what we actually do in the world. I don't want to bury the lead, but it feels like I don't want to drone on and on about the way in which we know that things are set up. So let me briefly touch on that, and then I'll get into his suggestion, of how we should sort of integrate and welcome children into the world. So, as you know, the way that we do it is we have the child, we start raising the child at home or at preschool or daycare, whatever, and then we integrate the child into some form of system. Even if you're homeschooling the child, there's a strong likelihood you're integrating them into some kind of system. But let's go with, sort of the higher population, which is going into some form of public or private school, and is basically getting sort of, carrot in front of the horse or carrot in front of the donkey the whole way, where they're constantly, why am I going to preschool? Well, it's so that you can be ready for kindergarten. Okay, why am I going to kindergarten? Oh, well, it's so you can progress through elementary school, and then middle school, and then high school. Okay, what am I doing that for? Well, it's so that you can then get into college or learn a vocation. And ultimately we can pop you out into the real world. And, the way in which this is then framed is that you're really attuning the child to this concept that we have of always living for the next thing, right? They're always sort of built into this sort of like, I'm on some sort of a path, or I'm a cog in a wheel, and I have to keep turning because we have to make it to the next mile. And if we don't make it to the next mile, we've failed, right? And we become failures and destitute, and life comes down hard on us, or something like that. And so there's no concept of taking pleasure and the enjoyment of the current situation of, even if you're in this system. Oh, why am I going to kindergarten? Oh, because you might find a bunch of enjoyable things about kindergarten. Not so that, you can learn X, Y, and Z and then go to first grade and do that for the next 12 or 13 years. And then put you into a secondary system, which is much more expensive, and where you can spend another 2 to 8 years or what have you. But the concept of doing it for the pleasure of doing it is really lost, right? It's always this goal. It's always this, you're having to attain something. And so this is a system that we set up, right? That we know that we put children into. Alan Watts' concept is much more open-ended, I would say. But it includes the system in which we currently put children into as well. So his concept is welcoming a child into the world. You essentially say, nice to meet you. Welcome to the world. Welcome to the human race. We specifically as humans are playing a game. And we have several rules to the game. So let's tell you those rules, make sure that they make sense to you, so that you can make your way through. And once you know these rules, and you have some experience with them, you may have ideas for better rules. And so hopefully as you get into your life, get older, have experience with these rules, hopefully you can then take the ideas that you have for improving those rules and do so. And therefore, you will help us sort of keep maneuvering these rules into a way that is most suitable for the current situation. And you know, the nice thing here is not only the concept of, more open-endedness, but also just the acknowledgement of we're playing a game and we have a ton of rules. So it's going to take some time, but let us tell you the rules. We'll start with the most important ones, and this feels very true to me. As opposed to this constant sort of cloak and dagger, right? There's always like a hidden element of like, oh, why am I going into elementary school? Oh, it's to do this other thing? Okay. Whereas the relaying of the rules, to me, feels a bit more all-encompassing and straightforward, right? Less like, oh, you're doing this thing to attain this other thing and da-da-da-da-da. However, that system is in and of itself part of the rules, right? And I like that there is again, I'll just use the word acknowledgement, that these rules are changeable. And if you think of better ones, you can do your best to integrate those better ones and get rid of the ones that don't work, right? Because that is very true. The hallucination of it all is quite immense. We're just making up all these things that we're saying, okay, this works, this doesn't work, the system has to be this way, the system can't be that way, right? And a lot of times it's not necessarily true. It's just customary or traditional or comfortable or just so familiar that there is no motivation or there's no propulsion in another direction. And I think a lot of that familiarity and that leaning on what's traditional also can weed out or breed out the want or the ability or even just sort of the understanding and the foresight that you can come up with different rules. I think leading that out of the gate is a tremendous idea. And I like it a lot, and so I wanted to share it. Like I said, I'm going to follow up with this video on the way in which this then evolves through adult life. It might be very apparent, but I think it might also be worth just sort of, in terms of follow through and coming full circle, tacking that on. But I'll save that for a follow-up video either tomorrow or in the coming days. All right, folks. Well, if you watched or walked with me this far, I really appreciate it. And as always, I will see you in the next video.